Okay, I'll call the Board of Adjustment hearing for June 19th to order. Minutes from the last meeting. Okay, they'll be in for next month.
Yep.
And then where'd it go? I read the announcement of proceedings. The Zoning Board of Adjustment appeals functions like a court. It must follow state laws and local or zoning ordinances. The zoning board cannot change or ignore any part of the zoning ordinance or state laws, but must apply the laws as written. The zoning board may only grant a variance, special exception, or administrative appeal if the applicant provides evidence showing that they meet all the legal standards for that decision. The legal standards the zoning board will use to decide on each application have been provided to the applicant and will be described at this meeting by the zoning board or staff. Each hearing will be opened by reading the application or appeal. The zoning department report will be read, including evidence from the on-site inspections. The applicant will be sworn in and then present the reasons and evidence to support why they think they meet the legal standards for the variance or special exception. The board may ask questions of the zoning staff and applicant. Witnesses will be sworn in and allowed to give testimony related to why the legal standards are or not met. Once the board has all the necessary facts, the chair will close the hearing and the board will deliberate and decide in front of the public whether the applicant has met the legal standards. The board will then proceed to the next hearing. Written decisions based on the evidence at the hearing and whether the zoning board finds that the applicant has met all legal standards. The evidence and deliberation the board will be filed in the zoning office and mailed to the parties involved as soon as possible. Minutes of the board meetings and decisions are available in the zoning office. A decision of the board may be appealed by commencing an action in the Dunn County Circuit Court within 30 days after the decision is filed in the zoning office. An applicant that starts construction before the 30 days appeal period assumes the risk of having the board's decision overturned. Okay, we have conditional use report permit request from Tim Stoffer for a campground, and there's you want to read the you want to read that, or you just want to put it in there for the notice of the public hearing so it's on record?
Sorry, typically I just put the notice in our staff report. I don't read it, but I can if you'd like.
Yeah, we used to read it, but we don't need to. Just that it's been properly noticed. And in the newspapers are the proper places. So then we will go. Ann, you want to? I think we'll start with your staff report. And then we will ask the applicant, let's swear them in, and if they want to speak to anything. Go ahead.
Do you want to do a roll call just so the reporter knows who's here?
Yep, we should. Go ahead, Crystal.
Crystal Halverson here.
Chief reporter here. David Bartlett here.
Mark Dietz present.
Tim Leno here.
Okay, go ahead, Ann.
Sorry, I'm just having Zoom is crashing on my computer. One moment. Okay, so this is a staff report summary presentation. So this is going to cover both requests from the applicant, the first being a conditional use permit for a campground, and then the second to modify conditions of an existing special exception permit. Sorry, please bear with me. My computer is running very slowly. Okay. Okay. And now you can't see my screen. Hopefully this works. So this presentation provides a summary of Exhibit 1, which is the staff report, and this includes an analysis of the applicant's request to modify the existing conditions of approval associated with Special Exception Permit 2021-B. Additionally, they're asking for a conditional permit for the establishment of a public campground intended to accommodate guests of the wedding venue known as Napa Valley Venue. These proposed modifications and additions pertain to an expanse of approximately 40 acres of land described as the southeast 1/4 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 31, Township 29 North, Range 14 West in the town of Stanton. Our first hearing will be a conditional use permit for the campground. Tim Stoffer is requesting a special exception permit for the operation of a public campground. Mr. Stoffer resides at the subject property and operates Napa Valley Venue. His property is located in the town of Stanton within the General Agriculture Zoning District. Napa Valley Venue was approved by the BOA via Special Exception Permit 2021-B for agricultural entertainment as a wedding barn. The project site is located within the General Agriculture Zoning District. This allows for agricultural, residential use, and other related activities. As you can see from the aerial photo, most of the property is surrounded by woodland, and the nearest home other than Mr. Stoffer's is 1/4 mile away. Access to the property is by way of 751st Avenue, a town road that intersects under a railroad bridge with the Chicago and Northwestern Rail Line and connects to Highway 12, a state highway. Integrating the campground and wedding venue offers an opportunity for diversification and supplemental income generation. The proposed project should be designed to minimize disturbance to existing agricultural land, and consideration should be given to preserving open spaces, retaining the natural landscape, and ensuring minimal impact on surrounding farmland. Wedding events and overnight camping can generate increased noise levels and traffic during peak seasons. Proper management strategies, including traffic control, capacity restriction, and appropriate event scheduling, should be implemented to mitigate potential disruptions to neighboring agricultural operations. The town of Stanton recommended approval of the campground request during a public meeting on April 18th, 2023. Staff have examined Mr. Stoffer's proposed campground using zoning ordinance criteria. In this analysis, we identified specific concerns that need to be addressed in order for the proposal to satisfy these criteria. Additionally, we offer recommendations to ensure that the proposal meets the intent, purpose, and regulations of the county zoning ordinance. These criteria are maximum occupancy, quiet hours, fire safety, smoking restrictions, traffic management, emergency services, health and sanitation, security, environmental protection, review, and monitoring. So I've broke these down and then listed on the right side suggested conditions that could be applied to address the concern. So I'll just go through these. The maximum number of campers or tents allowed on the site should be established to ensure the campground does not become overcrowded, which can impact public safety and increase noise levels. Suggested mitigation condition would be a total of 25 camping units for campsites, tent, and recreational vehicles, with no more than 5 of which being for recreational vehicles. Quiet hours could be established to minimize noise level during nighttime hours to mitigate noise concerns and ensure neighboring properties are not disturbed. The applicant stated in the application that the days and hours of operation of the campground would be dependent on when customers would rent the wedding venue. Mostly on weekends, but some will be during the week. The wedding venue is required to end music by 11 p.m. Suggested condition would be that quiet hours are to be followed from midnight to 7 a.m. Fire safety and smoking restrictions require the campground to adhere to strict safety protocols and prohibit smoking in certain areas, especially near structures that don't contain fire suppression systems. So the suggested conditions would be all fire bans and other restrictions on fire use will be diligently enforced by campground staff. Smoking in open flame is prohibited within 50 feet of all agricultural structures. Develop a traffic management plan to address potential congestion issues caused by increased vehicle movements at the campground. Focus on ensuring safe access and exit while minimizing disruption to neighbors. The main concern we've had is how traffic flows on Highway 12, specifically when vehicles turn left or right onto 751st Avenue. There is not a turn lane in either direction, and the road width under the railroad bridge seems to be only suitable for one vehicle at a time. This could be a problem if guests are entering or exiting at intermittent times. However, the campground is intended to serve wedding guests, so traffic flow is expected to be mostly in one direction at a time. For Dunn County's emergency management plan, based on a review of the community and past tornado impacts, it was determined that the following general types of properties are especially vulnerable to tornado and high wind events. These include campgrounds, trailers, and resort properties without storm shelters. To mitigate these concerns, we've suggested that driveways, parking lots, and paths be established and maintained with clear signage directing traffic. No parking will occur on public roads or within the road right-of-way. The operator will monitor weather conditions and immediately alert campers to any potentially unsafe conditions. For health and sanitation, it's required that the campground provide adequate restroom and shower facilities, maintenance, and disposal of waste to safeguard public health and hygiene. Most of these guidelines, or all of these guidelines, are under ATCP 79. So it's suggested that one of the conditions be that the campground operator will fulfill all licensing requirements specified by ATCP 79. Encourage the implementation of security measures. We're suggesting that outdoor lighting will be provided only as necessary for security, safety, and traffic circulation, and will be shielded and directed downward. All activities carried out pursuant to this conditional use permit must comply with governmental regulatory provisions, including without limitation, alcohol and food regulations, fire safety regulations, and building code provisions. Promote sustainable practices within the campground that reduce impacts on neighbors. Suggested that intensity of noise will be limited to less than 65 decibels measured at the parcel boundary, and that activities will not create a nuisance to nearby residents by way of traffic, noise, or parking. By adhering to regulations and following conditions established by the BOA, the proposed campground and wedding venue can provide a safe and enjoyable experience for visitors while also meeting the necessary health and safety standards mandated by Wisconsin ATCP 79. Suggested conditions to cover this would be this approval does not preempt the permittee's obligation to comply with all other applicable federal, state, and local regulations, and the owners of the property to which this conditional use is issued will abide by all representations and commitments made in their application, as well as before the Board of Adjustment, and in accordance with all conditions to the conditional use permits taken as a whole as approved by the Board of Adjustment. It's recommended that the BOA grant Mr. Stoffer the requested conditional use permit, enabling him to establish and operate a campground as an accommodation facility for visitors of his agricultural entertainment venue, Napa Valley Venue. Furthermore, if the campground is approved, it is suggested to eliminate modification number 3 from his existing conditional use permit, thereby permitting overnight camping for guests attending the venue. And that's the conclusion of the first staff report.
Okay. I think we'd like to approve these individually. I think that would probably be the best way to go. And does the applicant wish to speak concerning anything that has been presented? Okay, come on up. Please go to the front microphone so you'll have to push the one button so it works.
And Mark, just for process, can we though still have both hearings and then decide on both so that we've heard everything before we move to decision? That's how it's listed in the agenda.
Yeah, we can do that. Oh, that's
Thank you.
fine. Go ahead. You want to address anything in what's been presented to so far?
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta swear you in.
Okay.
You solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And please state your name and your address, please.
Tim Stoffer, E 681 751st Avenue, Knapp, Wisconsin, 54749.
Okay, go ahead, proceed.
So yes, I'm Tim Stoffer. I have my wife Heidi with me tonight. So we're here to, I guess, be present for this petition. Obviously a little background situation is in order to, I guess, improve business and familiarity, we've been to several wedding fairs. And obviously many people come and they ask lots of questions about what you have that others don't, et cetera, what your capabilities are. And we've learned a lot by doing so, but some of the key big things are bathrooms. Lots of younger people do not want to use porta potties anymore. So one of their first questions is, do you have anything besides porta potties on your event center? So another one, of course, is a campground issue. More and more it's becoming very popular. And I think it's a smart thing too, with safety precautions for people that are there having a good time and drinking, that they'd like to be able to say, well, can we have the wedding party or et cetera, and some others stay there overnight so there's no driving involved after an event. So it seemed like a smart thing that we wanted to help honor and facilitate. So that's where it came into this campground thing. Was hoping at first that, it could just be a temporary thing because we saw that you could get like weekend passes, but working with the environmental health department in Dunn County, Ted was one, Amy Arbitan was the other one that I spoke with a lot. And we basically formulated everything, but then found out that I also needed to get this conditional use approval in order to be able to proceed with that. So that's why we're in this situation here. Have basically pretty much everything. They've been out to our site. They're pretty much ready to approve for it. But obviously we had to go through this, but I made it clear to them, it doesn't matter that this is only going to be a temporary thing. We have no interest in having a full-time campground for 8 months out of the year. This is just something to help facilitate people that are coming to rent the venue on the weekend and I know sometime like with other places we've seen where they want to come in a day early if a lot of people are traveling and be able to stay like maybe Thursday night or to Friday night, so it would still be just something very temporary. And that's what we're just trying to help facilitate for people to be able to do that with the campground. Any questions regarding the reasoning behind it?
Well, if there's no questions, if you want to, maybe just want to take a chair here and we'll go through the second part and Ann will proceed.
I just have a question about procedure. Just want to make sure we're following. Just 1 second. Do we need to close the hearing before we move on to the other hearing?
Is it listed as two separate hearings?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, we do. So I will close this part of the hearing and we will reconvene it at a future time here.
So just to be clear, if you close the record in the hearing right now, you can't ask any more questions of any of the applicants or the zoning department. It would just go to deliberation and decision. So this would be your opportunity now to have any more questions answered.
I have a question. Yeah. In your recommendation was 25 campers and five of which can be recreational vehicles. Does that include trailers or is that just the motorhome type?
It would be the definition of recreational vehicles from ATCP 79. This was the number that was proposed to public health and to the variance committee when the application went through. And that's why I went with that number. I read recreational vehicles as motorized campers.
Okay, that's the way I was looking at it too. So
Okay.
trailers wouldn't be included in that probably.
I guess I don't know what you mean by trailers.
Fifth wheel trailer or a bumper pole camper trailer.
It would seem they would be.
If we
included.
want to specify that, we can, but I don't know if ATCP considers those the same or not.
Well, I don't either, but I think you're gonna find a lot more campers that are trailers than tents. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to have 20 tents and only 5. I mean, I'm okay if it's only 5 motorhomes because trailers are a lot more popular.
Would you like to change the condition or is it satisfactory? I don't,
Depending what it means.
What does 79 say?
I would have to look it up, but this is what the variance was granted for, was that.
Then I guess I would like to change the 5 when we say recreational vehicles, we mean ones that are motorized, like a motorhome.
Okay. I can go into our draft conditions if you'd like and change that.
If it's all right with everybody else.
I think, go ahead, Crystal.
I think that just provides more clarity because I do think that its meaning is motorized. So like that means you could have 5 motorized recreational vehicles and still a few more pop-up tents that would be replacing a tent.
And a bumper
Yeah,
trailer.
yeah, those are
Hitch or whatever.
right. I also have a process question. So the agenda says to do the hearings twice in a row, but obviously I think that these decisions are connected to one another. So the second hearing is specifically about the number of people and then just eliminating the campground, no overnight campers. So do I take that to mean then that if we close this first hearing and open up the second hearing, we can still talk about overnight camping and number of people with anyone who's sworn in?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Then I will close this portion or this hearing for that portion of our agenda. And then we will go to the next one. And that pertains to modification request by Tim Stauffer to the original wedding venue approval.
I just have to set that up. One moment, please. The staff report is for the request to modify conditions number 3 and number 5 from existing permit number 2021-B. The first request is to eliminate modification number 3 from the existing permit, thereby permitting overnight camping for guests attending the venue. And then the second request is to modify condition number 5 to allow up to 500 guests per event. The established maximum number of guests is currently 300. Mr. Suffer is requesting this be changed to allow up to 500 guests. I was kind of questioning like where the number 300 came from, and I found it was listed multiple times under SPS 362 regarding occupant load as a determining factor to determine whether an automatic sprinkler system is required. Buildings and structures that are on farm premises used for farming purposes and temporarily or permanently purposed as a group A-2 occupancy are exempt from being required to install an automatic sprinkler system when all of the following apply. The building is used for assembly purposes no more than 180 cumulative days per year. The fire area does not exceed 12,000 square feet. The occupant load of the fire area does not exceed 300, and the fire area is located on a floor with exit discharge at grade. So I believe this is where that 300 comes from. As to whether a sprinkler system is required or not, I cannot answer that. That would be up to the commercial building inspector or the fire department. And I believe that's the Boyceville, the fire department. The town of Stanton, Wisconsin Department of Transportation were asked for their comment and recommendations. The town is meeting tonight, June 19th, and is discussing the applicant's request to increase capacity. So we don't have an answer from them at this moment. And comments have not been received from the Wisconsin DOT. Staff examined the proposed modification to condition number 5 using the criteria outlined in the Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Staff also evaluated how this increase in capacity will align with the intent, purpose, and regulations of the Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. In this analysis, we identified specific concerns to be addressed in order for the proposal to satisfy the criteria. Additionally, we offer recommendations that will help ensure the proposal meets the intent, purpose, and regulations of the Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Establishing a maximum number of guests per event is necessary to ensure the wedding venue does not become overcrowded, which can impact public safety and increase noise levels. Factors to consider would be safety, traffic management, health and sanitation, environmental protection, and compliance with the ordinance and other laws. The venue's infrastructure and emergency exits should be evaluated for compliance with fire codes. The Boyceville Fire Department evaluated the barn structure and calculated occupant load capacity. Fire Inspector Tim Fassbender provided a statement on May 13th, 2023 regarding occupant load capacity, noting the following. A fire protection system is not required at this said address. The building has 2 levels, an upper and lower. The building is required to maintain all life safety codes. The established occupant load capacity is 528 for the lower level and 504 for the upper level. Any change in building structure or means of egress will void this occupant load capacity. Traffic management. With an increased capacity, there's a strong possibility of higher traffic volumes in the surrounding areas, particularly during wedding events. Although the location of the venue itself is accessed from 751st Avenue, this road crosses under a rail line bridge and is accessed from Highway 12, which certainly has higher traffic volumes. The railroad crossing goes under the rail line rather than over, but is single lane. Proper traffic management measures need to be implemented to prevent congestion, maintain the flow of traffic, and prevent backup on Highway 12. The venue owner should consult with the local transportation authorities, the town, county, and DOT to assess the adequacy of existing road infrastructure and develop a plan designed for the increased number of guests entering and exiting the property. Increasing the capacity of the wedding barn venue will result in an increased number of attendees, potentially putting additional strain on existing facilities and its services. Adequate provisions should be made to handle the additional demands on utilities such as water supply, restroom facilities, and waste management. The existing special exception contains a condition that one toilet be provided for every 75 guests. Oh, sorry, just one second. I think I missed something on that last slide. The venue owner should ensure compliance with regulations and take action to address any potential health hazards, such as foodborne illness or disease outbreak associated with large in-person gatherings. Okay, moving on to the next slide. The existing permit has conditions addressing suggested mitigation measures such as limiting decibel levels and event schedule restrictions. The venue owner must adhere to the existing permit conditions as well as any other local, state, or federal regulations that may apply. Compliance, section 13.2.8.07 of the Dunn County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance allows certain uses of the property to take place upon approval of the BOA, which would otherwise not be allowed under controlling zoning. The venue owner must prove their ability to address the concerns mentioned in the report as the increased capacity has going from 300 to 500 individuals. Mr. Stoffer has provided documents from the Boyceville Fire Department confirming that both the upper and lower levels of the barn can safely accommodate more than 500 guests. In 2021, Mr. Stoffer established Nathaba Valley venue and has successfully operated this wedding venue business, adhering to the original permit conditions regarding noise, lighting, and operating hours. The original permit allowed conditional use for events like weddings and anniversary. It can be reasonably concluded that this commercial use aligns with the general agriculture district and serves agriculture. At this point, the staff recommendation is to postpone the decision until July 17th, 2023 BOA meeting to allow for time for recommendations and comments from the town and DOT. I also drafted a condition if the BOA is favorable to maximum event capacity, and I've included that here. And that's the conclusion of the staff report.
Does the applicant wish to address anything that has been presented now?
So I guess some of the background on that as well. Do I need sworn in again?
No.
Is the same thing. It's like we've gone to many wedding fairs, etc. And a question was about the number of people and capacity, that there are some weddings, not by any means the largest amount. There'd still be a lot that were still, closer to 300 range, but there are ones that are requesting to go beyond 300, which seems to be a contention that they'll go elsewhere to have their business, obviously. So we were motivated to try at this situation, obviously starting with the fire department, and they do have, they follow strict code and things that we have to do out there with lighted exit signs and the different types of things we have to have at larger exits, etc. Fire issues, keeping flammable stuff away from the building itself. And so there are many things that we have to comply with them. So he actually was the one who kind of brought it up with us when we talked about it, because obviously they inspect every, with less than 6 months at a time. So it can be up to twice a year that they come out, depending on how late our thing goes in the fall. So he's the one who mentioned that, well, you could certainly go way over 300. So he reviewed all the codes, did a thorough inspection, got all the measurements, etc., of the doors, the footprint, the floors, etc. And that's what he came up with here. So we thought, well, it should, we should definitely try to get to a higher capacity to accommodate more potential guests coming in. One thing that we've noticed with wedding parties is like with the original parking plan that there was an X amount of like 1.4 people per car or something like that. Well, when it comes to weddings and events like that, there's a lot higher amount of people that come in per car. And so therefore, there's not near as many cars as what you would think if this was just an average thing coming off the street with regular, people coming for occupancy wise. So we don't see near as much volumes as what would be if it was just something, going to a shopping mall, et cetera, off the street. So there are it's very reduced in that sense. We've had buses in there for like the Glenwood City Prom. So they have no problem ingress inside and out with, other cars going as well. Obviously it is 12 state highway there. And when we were asked the first time to review with the traffic and being the state highway, they had no concerns whatsoever, the state themselves, on a review of the amount of vehicles. So they didn't say there was any concern anywhere near that, but I guess that's pretty much what I have. If you have any questions regarding that.
I just a question on the parking lot. And I remember when we did this 2 years ago, and the parking, I remember where the parking was.
Yeah.
Do you need additional parking to accommodate 500 people?
So what I did
Or
spend,
the other part of my question would be,
have we addressed it?
has the with the current permit, is your parking not full?
So you mean, has it been full at all since?
Yes. I mean,
No, not even close. That's what I'm saying. So it's like of ones we've had that had events close to 300 people, it never even got close to being filled. And that was the first. So if you recall at all, I had two locations. There was a
Yep.
parking lot A and a parking lot B. So B was the overflow if it actually went to close to 300 people. And we've never gone beyond parking lot A, even when we got to that capacity of 300 people with plenty of room to spare. So, but to finish, I guess for the additional parking, where parking lot B is, there was plenty of more acreage there that we can easily put another 220 plus vehicles out there if we wanted to. So, and far beyond. I mean, we could park 500 cars out there if we wanted to. We have plenty of acreage of field to do so. As far as, additional people, will still comply with our NORS issues. The 65 decibels at the edge will, still have the same curfews, will still meet the same codes and requirements. So, we don't plan on changing anything else. What is already in place will always stay in place.
Yeah, this is just to modify the number of people.
Just a number of people.
And the campground
Yeah.
aspect of it. So. Questions?
I do, if I may.
Go ahead.
All right. What was the most people that you had in the last 2 years?
It was
Approximately, was it 300?
It was
50?
It was 300.
It was 300, okay. All right, and in this situation is that you were required to have porta potties for every 75. And if we, if things are moved to 500, that kind of changes the game there from a sanitation standpoint, doesn't it?
Yes, so I kind of mentioned earlier about one of the things that people like to see is going beyond porta potties. And that's what we've had thus far.
Mhm.
Well, from cesspool sanitation up in Chippewa Falls, we are purchasing what they call the presidential suite bathroom trailer. So it's very, very nice. It looks like walking into a building restroom.
Yeah.
There are 4 stalls on the guy's side. There are 4 stalls on the women's side. So for a total of, that's an 8, occupancy. So obviously times 75 per stall, times 8. And then plus I will also keep and maintain a wheelchair handicap accessible porta potty, the larger one down on the floor. So really, in essence, we will have enough bathroom capacity for 675 people out on site as of next month.
Okay, with this presidential suite. you're
Correct.
talking about.
Yep, that's what they call it. Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
So,
popular thing for them
is-
to rent at these.
all right, so is this presidential suite just something that you rent for a weekend? Or is this something that will be, that you're purchasing or leasing from this organization?
We are making the commitment long-term to purchase this thing and have it on site full-time.
Okay, and then in that situation, you'd have a pump truck come in periodically.
After every event.
After every event, all right. So from a sanitation standpoint, it sounds like you've got this covered pretty
Correct.
well for the extra people,
Yes,
from what I'm understanding here. And Mark addressed with the parking, and you said you okay, kind of lost my train of thought here. So, you know, with the added people, we've addressed the parking, we've addressed the sanitation issues. And fire safety, you said it's already been taken care of by the Boyceville
Boyceville Fire
Fire
Department.
Department. And they're comfortable with the number of exits for the additional people.
Correct.
Okay. And traffic. But how is that going to be addressed? I mean, that's a lot more people, 500.
So like when we got to the 300 and what we see with the ones asking about larger capacities, they're typically like coming from the cities, et cetera, which have a lot of people traveling. And what we find are happening is a lot of them are wanting to rent hotel space. And luckily we're close enough to, 15 minutes from Menominee, 15 minutes from Baldwin, either way. And what's going to end up happening is a lot of them are going to be renting a shuttle. And that shuttle is going to be going back and forth, both bringing people there and taking them back to the hotels. So that reduces a lot of your volume of individual cars coming.
Now, these shuttles, that's their responsibility, not yours?
It is their responsibility, but
Okay, all right.
I have brochures to show them of basically local companies from Menominee and other places around that obviously provide that service.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the information.
Mhm.
I have just a couple more. Hi.
Hi.
Will you be installing showers as required for the campground? Did I hear that that's?
They are
required?
not required.
Okay. So you will not be?
No.
Yep. And then, can you tell me, I know you've only had a couple of seasons, but how often do you hit that 300? And have you ever had to do you think that you have lost a gig specifically because you're not big enough?
Yes, we've turned down several weddings because people that thinking that they're going to need to go over that 300 mark. So obviously to comply with code is we say, sorry, we can't entertain that.
Mhm. And how often are you booked?
So this year for the remainder, we'll have like 8 events. This late summer, usually the middle of summer, it gets hot and people aren't that interested, but then once it comes into September, we're gonna get really busy, September, October. And, so yeah, probably 8 right now, but it's somewhat of a slow start because people are looking out over 12 months ahead of time for things, so.
Mhm.
But,
Thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions? From the board? No questions for Ann? Okay. Yeah, that was the only concern that I had was the one lane traffic through that bridge or through that deal, but apparently it hasn't been a problem. At least not that anybody's heard, so.
Well, we really haven't heard from the neighbors or the town on that issue.
Yeah, we haven't heard from the town and the neighbors, well, they would have got a notice of this if they wanted to come.
Okay,
All the adjoining landowners get a notice of this hearing in the mail. as long as the mail delivers. Um, so, so I guess we have two options. We have, I guess it's up to the board. Do we want to address the campground issue?
I think we should.
I think we should too. I just,
So are you ready to close the hearing and then we can move to
Can-
deliberation?
I wanna know what we're doing before we close it.
Can we keep this hearing open? And,
Yes.
and,
Well, not to deliberate, we can't.
but to deliberate about the campground, not this.
Number one, basically.
Yeah, because I might have, I'm just thinking we might have some questions about number two if we pass number one.
Here's just the man to ask.
Mhm.
Nick is here now. Maybe he can answer that question.
Perfect. Perfect.
Come and grab a chair.
I apologize. I got my meeting time wrong and got stuck in an errand.
We have a question already for you, Nick. We have two hearings. And the first one has to do with the campground at the site. And we had the questions and we closed that hearing.
Yes.
And then we went to the next hearing without, we closed that hearing without deliberation or without, because the second hearing that was posted has to do with the campground overnight stay. The original permit did not allow for overnight camping. So I guess the board decided that it was best to wait and deal with or hear the other hearing before we go back to the first and deliberate.
Have you started the second hearing yet?
Yes,
You're well into it or
we're,
just?
we're pretty much
starting?
done with it.
Oh. Well,
We're pretty much done with it. We the circumstance is that we haven't heard from the town. The town board is meeting tonight on to address the increased occupancy from 300 to 500. And I think they've already addressed the campground. The town has already
Yes.
addressed the campground at an April 18th meeting. So basically it's the occupancy.
one option you could do would be to continue, because this is a quasi judicial decision-making process. It's like court. You're not judges, you're not elected, but you're making a quasi judicial decision. And you're waiting on one important factor that will weigh on the decision that you make. If you wish, you can engage in some discussion tonight and postpone and continue the hearing until the next meeting, or you can just continue the hearing until the next meeting and receive the town board's report.
Because it's posted as two, can we go back and finish the first?
Yes.
So we can close that one because the question that the town board has already addressed the first hearing. We already have information from them on the campground itself. We do not have, we don't have information from the town board or decision or thinking of what they think on the occupancy going from 300 to 500.
Yeah, both, so there are two applications. There are two cases, if you
Yep.
will.
Yep.
And one of them you can wrap up tonight if you're inclined to do so, and the other one, if you're waiting for the town board's decision on it, you can continue the proceedings until the next meeting. But you can conclude the first application and the deliberation and your decision if you wish to do so.
Yeah, I think we should. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will not close this particular hearing yet, the second one. But we will be going, we are going back to the first to reconvene the first hearing. And the first hearing dealt specifically with the campground. And so does the board have any further questions? And because we already closed that hearing, so I guess it's up to us to discuss now, and the board is can deliberate. Does anybody on the board have any question or concern that they would like to state?
I don't have any concerns with the campground as long as we straighten that out, that the 20 and the 5 going with the recommendations of the zoning office.
In the health and the health department, I think, is the one that probably did that, huh?
Whoever, those recommendations I would go with as long as we realize that the 5 is just motorized vehicles, motorized campers and not trailers,
Motor home,
motorhomes.
motor home.
Whatever the definition might be.
Yeah. And the 20 can be tents or camper trailers of any type.
Yeah.
Now, I gotta go back, were there any conditions to that? When we went through that?
Well, there was a time, there was.
The quiet time,
Yeah, 12
my
to,
glasses up here.
quiet time, 12 to 7 on the campground. I think the other conditions were just, probably what are there already.
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of concern about the campground's gonna probably follow the same regulation as the permit, the original permit. They have to meet that same requirements. Well,
If I may, I think there was some specification regarding campfires.
Yes,
It
there
had to
is
be so far away from the
50 feet from an agricultural building.
building or
Yeah.
something like that, yeah.
and that should be probably included just as a so it's in the record,
Yeah, that's
You
what I
know,
was thinking.
as far as the motion.
Well, could we just make the motion that we would go with all the recommendations by staff?
I think you can.
Did we have, Ann, did we have that recommendation regarding the fires?
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Okay, that's it. All
Number
right.
4.
Yeah.
If you look at page 7,
Okay,
Anne has 10 different recommended conditions.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to approve the applicant's petition with all of the conditions listed. Should I list the types or is that good enough?
we could read them if we wanted to.
Okay. A total of 25 camping units for campsites, tents, and motorized recreational vehicles with no more than 5 of which being for motorized recreational vehicles. Quiet hours are to be followed from midnight to 7 a.m. All fire bans and other restrictions on fire use will be diligently enforced by campground staff. Smoking and open flame is prohibited within 50 feet of all agricultural structures. All parking will be on site and will not occur on the roadway or within the road right of way. Driveways, parking lots, and paths will be established and maintained with clear signage directing traffic. Operator will monitor weather conditions and immediately alert campers to any potentially unsafe conditions. The campground operator will fulfill all licensing requirements specified by ATCP 79. Outdoor lighting will be provided only as necessary for security, safety, and traffic circulation, and will be shielded and directed downward. All activities carried out pursuant to this conditional use permit must comply with governmental regulatory provisions, including without limitation, alcohol and food regulations, fire safety regulations, and building code provisions. Intensity of noise will be limited to less than 65 decibels measured at the parcel boundary. Activities will not create a nuisance to nearby residents by way of traffic, noise, or parking. This approval does not preempt permittees' obligation to comply with all other applicable federal, state, and local regulations. The owners of the property to which this conditional use is issued will abide by all representations and commitments made in their application, as well as before the Board of Adjustment and in accordance with all conditions to the conditional use permits taken as a whole as approved by the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, Crystal has made a motion to approve the campsite.
I'll second.
Tim Lino seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Campground is approved. Now going back to the second hearing. What's your pleasure on that?
I would like to separate the two, number 3 and number 5 issues. And I would like to take care of number 3 tonight so that if they want to move ahead on the campground, they can and not have to wait a month.
I think that's reasonable.
Is that a motion? If it is,
I
I'll
can make
second
it
it.
a motion if it's appropriate
Make it.
to do it at this time.
I think so.
Okay, I move that we approve number 3 of the conditions.
We remove
And
number.
that's removing camping.
Yep. Overnight.
Being prohibited from camping overnight.
Yep.
From our decision 2021B, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Correct.
And we'll revisit.
No, that's
number
just
5.
one.
In the future.
Okay. We have a motion on the hearing number 2 regarding the camping restriction that was in the original permit. And we approved the camping in the first hearing, and so we need to modify this. And so this would modify the original permit to allow for an overnight stay. And that has been made a motion. Is there a second to that?
I can second that.
Is there any further discussion on it at all? No? All motion has been made and seconded to approve or to modify the original permit to allow for overnight camping. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The remaining part of the second hearing, we will not close the hearing unless the board chooses to do so.
I'd like to leave it open until the next meeting in July so we can hear what the town has to say.
We probably, do I need a motion on that?
Not sure. Motion never hurts.
Yeah, that's what I think too. A motion never hurts, but
I move that we leave the hearing open so we can make our decision on number 5 of the second hearing at the July meeting.
is there a second? second by Tim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. And so the second hearing will not be closed, but we will adjourn for tonight and reconvene then, I think it's July 17th. I think, and there's probably other agenda items on the 17th too, but
Yes.
so we can stop the recording. This hearing is being revisited or continued